Hey YouTube, how you doing? It's Max. I haven't really done one of these MOAT desktop discussion videos in a while. Um, in my last video, I was talking. It was like the city skylines thing where I was, working on the city for my brother, and I had this intro about how I was kind of in like this mental haze and kind of demotivated from making some videos, and pretty much I guess I just wanted to like go into a little bit more detail and talk about that. Um, so this is the video, I guess. When I think about it, and I think about like the root of the haze, I feel like it has to do a lot with like this feeling of trying to be more, I guess, improve myself a little bit more, like self-improvement, I guess. And I feel like this is one of those things, self-improvement is one of those things where there isn't really ever an end point to self-improvement. So, you know, it's rare. Yeah, I just don't think, I guess, there's a point where you can be like, that's it. I don't have to work on myself anymore. It's one of those things where you just kind of like hit checkpoints in your life and it's overall this never-ending journey. And so, I guess one of these checkpoint things, I guess you could say, was trying to create these 100 videos. And, this was an achievement that, was successful. But at the end of the day, stories have endings and that's it. But like real life doesn't have endings really. It just has like chapters. I guess real life has endings when you die, but life goes on for other people, it's but I guess your self improvement journey continues until you die, per se. And there isn't really any reward, I guess, for self improving. Um, it's just you do it, right? And maybe this helps you out during your life, but at the end of your life, it's all for nothing, if that makes sense. So, this is something that I guess I've been kind of thinking about. And how this kind of relates back to the videos is like my current mindset is that I just had to create these videos and achieve this goal. And currently, I'm like, why am I still making videos? It's and there's many different reasons, but I feel like it's almost like this. When you build a habit like making videos, it almost becomes like this addictive drug in a way, where like if I make a video one day, um, it becomes like I'm checking off this box, right? I make a video, check off the box, get the dopamine, and that's kind of like, a positive. But if you don't make a video a day, then it feels like you've kind of let someone else down, Uh, in this case, it's like letting myself down if I don't make a video. It feels like I didn't do what I wanted to do. So it's sort of like setting up this expectation, and I got to do it. Otherwise, I'm not meeting my own expectations. Is currently, I guess, my mindset with these videos. And I know that, like, like I just coughed there, these videos don't have like that much effort put into them. It's not like um, you know, like I create a script, but it's not like a super well edited script. Um, After I create the video, it's not like I have a big post production thing going on. I'm not really looking to try to market these videos. I'm not trying to follow or fit an algorithm on YouTube. Um, there isn't really a whole lot of public relations maintenance I have to do to maintain the channel. I'm not getting a source of income for this, so it's not like this. The success of this channel is or my livelihood is dependent on the success of this channel. So it's not like, I say I feel like I failed for the day. It's currently just like a pressure I'm imposing upon myself. There aren't these external kind of forces causing me to feel this pressure. So from one hand, it's like, I'm thankful that I don't have to deal with that much pressure, but it's still, I guess, pressure in a sense. Um, and so I just kind of wanted to clarify that a bit. Um, so like I guess what does sticking with this sort of habit, this YouTube channel, have to do with like self improvement? And I guess like where I'm kind of going with this is that, I've said a lot of times where, this, like I just said it now, that, this doesn't have a high bar, I guess you could say. I'm setting a very low bar for myself to create one video routinely. It's not even per day, it's just routinely. Um, and I guess I want it to be a hobby. um just kind of like how I see self-improvement as sort of this hobby. It's not something that really self-improvement isn't something that really determines your livelihood. There are some, benefits that you can get from self-improvement that, could put you in better positions in life for getting a livelihood, but it's kind of just like something extra. It's not necessary. And I guess spending time a lot in you like making YouTube videos, it kind of relates to like, and this is just kind of like word vomit again, but I'm trying to relate my creating of content with, I watch a lot of content on YouTube. When I watch a lot of content, it's usually mostly educational or informative videos about, things going on in the world, different cultures, and a lot of things have to do with like hobbies. I enjoy like cooking or playing different games, and different perspectives on improving in those kinds of categories in my life. um, if I were to watch something like comedic, it's usually something like that still has a bit of like education or informative nature to it, such as like there's this podcast called the Jim Jeffries. I don't know about that, where they get like a special guest to come on. And while there's like, a lot of comedy to it, there's a lot of learning to it as well. And so I think, I guess, what I'm trying to say is that I constantly sort of surround myself with a lot of like brain on content as opposed to brain off content. And when you're, I guess, surrounded by like a lot of brain on content, there's a lot of like comparing yourself to other content creators. There's comparing yourself intellectually with other people. And it's on one hand super humbling to be like, this person knows way more about this thing than I do, and just kind of uh, I guess, listen to what they have to say and sort of try to build yourself by this person's experiences. I don't know if that makes sense, but just kind of, it's sort of like when you're in school and you're just kind of like absorbing information like a sponge. There's something about that that I feel like I have this like minor obsession with, just constantly feeling like I need to improve myself. Um, and it feels bad when I like turn my brain off. So like if I'm not, consuming something new, then I feel like I'm almost like dulling my senses, if you will. I don't know if that makes sense. But when you're constantly surrounding yourself with this brain on content, it's sort of like information overload. Like you only have so much bandwidth as a person to really consume um, content, to really consume new information. Kind of like that. You can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. It's like as I get older, I kind of notice myself wanting more to, um, find stability rather than find solutions, if that makes sense. So sometimes this information overload can be crippling or paralyzing at times. And so I think that's just kind of like a summary of what I'm currently feeling over these past week or so, and why I haven't really been inspired to create a lot of content. Um, and I think like a little bit switching gears here. Um, I think that like when I see a reason I care about like self improvement, right? Is that there's like this saying someone said where it's like you see, you're more sensitive to people who make the same mistakes that you make, I guess you could say. So I think that like um, I have this like sensitive, because I'm super self critical, that causes me to be super self-critical of others at times. Not like um, outwardly, but like just kind of internally critical. And when people are like inconsiderate or tardy, late for things, um, people who don't really communicate um, things very well, people who don't really they can't they have an inability to compromise when trying to come up with an idea or plans or something like that, people who need to have it their way or the highway, and even like people who I guess are constantly complaining about something in their life and don't really, what am I trying to say? Don't really make any effort or steps to, um, resolve these problems. I don't know. I'm not like thinking about like specific situations, I guess, but just like um, these kinds of themes that come up in life. And I think that these are all things that I am sensitive to because I have experienced my own failures in these areas. So I want people, I guess, to um, also focus on self improvement. Um, and I don't know exactly why, but it's something that I think it just makes me sensitive and puts me in like a mood, I guess, if I see this going on. And I don't want to just like talk about it out loud because it might ruin the vibe. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but that's just wanted to kind of preface this, I guess, with that. And I think that I'm not trying to say that I'm perfect because I make all these mistakes all the time. And I think that it's normal to make these mistakes. Um, but I think that when I see this situation happen, I sort of get paralyzed in the moment because I don't want to, I don't want to like explain what they should do in their life. I don't want to critique them in the moment. Sometimes maybe I should be more critical outwardly and explain, this is how that makes me feel. But I feel it sort of paralyzes me in the moment because I'm constantly trying to think about what is like the best course of action for me to take in this situation. Should I be more critical with them? Should I explain myself? If I explain myself using this strategy, is it going to come off as if I'm being too critical to this person? Trying to really frame the situation but not really, I guess, it's like kind of like bottling it up a bit, and then trying to figure out what's a good strategy for me to release this bottle without it, um, you know, impacting a relationship with someone else, kind of stuff. So I think this kind of is why I sort of gravitate towards like writing and world building and game design. And this is sort of maybe a bit of a stretch, but I think that writing and world building and game design is a way to sort of externalize um, processing this information. So what I mean by that is like if I see a conflict of someone acting a certain way that like for example, what was something I said earlier, someone who you know lacks communication skills, right? Then I can write a story or a conflict that uses that as a theme to sort of convey this kind of frustration I have with that. So, like two characters kind of arguing, and the reader can understand that the cause here is that there's a lack in a bridge of communication. And I guess that's like a healthy way for me to externalize it without these kinds of things bottling up. And um, I'm just going off on rants, but I feel like this sort of, when you're a game designer or an author, um, I do feel like it's very like manipulative in a way where you are sort of setting up these parameters, these criteria, the setting, and using this plot to sort of um, convince. It's like argument or persuasion where you're persuading the player or the reader to think certain ways. So I guess that's why I kind of feel like it's a little bit manipulative, but it's not something that's taboo manipulative. It's something that you can um uh you're kind of, it's more like an entertainment or like a life lesson in an indirect way. It's not being super direct in teaching someone to where you're belittling them. It's more of like this, I guess we as humans are storytellers and are drawn to stories, and sometimes stories are the best means of persuasion, if that makes sense. So another kind of like, take a deep breath moment. What does this have to do with self-improvement? I'm talking about controlling people's lives, people's response to stimuli that I create. What does this have to do with self-improvement? And I think like, um, internally, um, there's a part of me that wants to say that I believe, like, so I don't, I'm speaking kind of hypothetically here, but um, there's a part of me that believes that there should be an objective standard in which people can follow, like a list of orders or a list of rules, and then they will um, improve themselves over time. And I don't actually think that there is an objective standard. It's more like wishful thinking where I wish there was this objective standard that people can follow to improve their lives. And this may, like, you could follow some rules and some guidelines, and it might improve your life in certain situations in certain areas. But there's always going to be this, like, um, you know, there's so many people in the world and so many different variables at play that I don't really think that there's one solution that's a catch-all. There are probably strategies that work really well for most people, but there's just a lot of variables. And so trying to really consider all these variables um, in a conversation with people, I really have to like figure out maybe this person is really good to, going back to like an example from earlier, but maybe this person, if they kind of like do something like don't really communicate well, maybe a good strategy is to, be direct about it. But for some people, being direct isn't always the best strategy and they might take it the wrong way. So I guess that's what I mean by this whole like paralysis and trying to really think about things from different perspectives. And so as I'm kind of, considering all these kinds of things in my head, um, these are all fictional. I'm talking about a situation where someone is, not being, what's a good strategy for handling this communication obstacle that I've come across in life. This is a kind of a fictional situation right now, but I guess sometimes it's non-fictional. And I guess these concepts in general, like the tardiness, the communication, the compromising, achieving goals, these are all kind of like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like fiction. These are fictional constructs that we've invented to be more efficient in life. Like being tardy is all about revolves around all around like time, which is a human construct. Communication is just a bunch of symbols that we've used to define meanings and concepts. They're all fictional. Compromising. At the end of the day, what does any of this matter? I guess. And this kind of brings my train of thought back to like the end of our lives. Is there a certain reward for living an efficient life? If I, did follow these steps to be more efficient to get this job I wanted, um, is this living the best life that I could possibly live? Or is this just kind of like another win? But at the end of the day, all the wins you get in life are kind of meaningless. Um, and kind of breaking my thought process and going to another realm of my mental argument here. um I feel like there's like this concern with like child celebrities, right? And like when you peak in high school, where if this was your peak moment in your life, there's this fear that going forward the best days of your life are behind you, and you're kind of stuck in this kind of valley with the mountain of your best moments and the mountain of death. And on the contrary, there's the alternative where if you don't peak early, then there's this constant fear that you're like behind in life. And when you are kind of, working on self improvement and you're kind of constantly working to achieve this, mental idea of your best life, um, if you ever finally achieve this goal, Like say that your goal in life was to, get married or something. And you finally achieve that goal. Once you achieve that goal, you either have to create a new goal for your life, or you're kind of you realize that you've achieved the goal. And you know pretty much the bottom line is you have to constantly come up with new goals for yourself. And this can get tiring after a while. And I guess going back, the marriage is kind of a bad example. I think the goal of getting a job is a better example. So let's say that you had this dream job to be an athlete for a famous football team or something, and you work really hard all your life, and you go to the gym all the time. You um you're you pretty much you go, you play all the games, you get recruited by the scouts, you do all the work to become a professional athlete. And once you make it to the team, it's almost like that's not good enough for a lot of people. Suddenly the expectations are higher. Um, and maybe you make the team and it's like, well, now I have to make like an all-star team, or I have to win a Super Bowl or something like that. And you're never quite good enough until you reach that goal. And then even when you do reach that goal, like I guess Tom Brady is a good example where like, there's still going to be like people who doubt you. There's still going to be people who don't like you, that kind of stuff. And it's like you're at the top. But and I don't know what Tom Brady is thinking. This could be a terrible example, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that satisfaction of achieving that one goal is always going to be fleeting. And if it isn't, like, so if you're gonna have to come up with a new goal, and if you don't come up with a new goal, then um then I guess what do you do? Are you just kind of like stagnant then? And I feel like maybe it's just how I'm wired, but I feel like there's always got to be um this this push to improve and get better. um and I guess that's why it can also be kind of paralyzing, because once you reach that sort of roadblock of like what next, it can be, um, yeah. So I feel like overall, uh, maybe my issue is just, maybe I lack the mental bandwidth to really, constantly be in this state of hustling. Um, and I guess like it makes me wonder, like, what am I doing all this for? Like, what is my drive to constantly focus on self improvement? Like, am I doing this because I just enjoy learning? Um, and this could be possible. This could be possible, but like, I feel like that's just kind of a shallow answer. There must be like more to it than just like I just constantly like learning. Like I feel like there's a deeper root there. So I guess another thing is, am I doing this self improvement because I want to prove something to myself? Is it because I like the feeling of accomplishing things? And it's like going back to the Tom Brady thing. If I were to, or I guess maybe I should relate this to my own life, like say like publishing a book or something. I remember growing up, that was something that I always wanted to like do, is like put my name on a book that I could hold. And while I co-wrote a book, and maybe this is part of it, like w- just having the physical book itself doesn't feel like it's enough. Like maybe I want to, because I'm a co-author in this book. Maybe I should write one book, just write one entire book just with my own name on it, and maybe that would like satisfy the feeling. But even then, I'm thinking about it, and it's like, would that actually satisfy the feeling? Would I? Because right now in my book, I notice a lot of mistakes I made in my section, and if I spent like months of my life or years of my life writing a book, would I still see the mistakes in my book? And I probably would. So there's be another motivator to kind of make it better. And I think that, you know, as I do these kind of creative projects, nothing is ever going to be perfect. Like a book may be published, but it's never like completed, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's kind of just going to be a reoccurring theme in anything that I do. I might have accomplished the goal, I might have made the 100 videos, but there's still something I could have done better. And I feel like there's never going to be a point where I'm 100% satisfied. So maybe I have to lower my expectations. Another thing that I'm thinking of, rather than am I trying to prove this to myself, am I trying to prove this feeling of, being self-improving? Am I trying to prove something to others? And part of me feels like, um, I feel like this is both like something that, if I weren't trying to prove something to others, then it would be a very lonely journey, right? So, like, one of the reasons of creating this YouTube channel in general was to be able to, connect with people on things that are going on and not just sort of writing these things down and then never communicating them to anybody. I feel like it's a lot less lonely if you're trying to incorporate other people into these kinds of things. So when you are, achieving something, I think it's good to, you know, share that with people. And I don't know if it's like the main drive, but I think there is definitely some drive in like wanting to feel that acknowledgement from others. But I guess one of the things about that is that it's always going to be this fleeting acknowledgement. Like, it might take you a long time to do something, but that moment of where you're getting acknowledgement for it is very small in comparison to the effort and time and energy it went into putting something together. And it's not something that's going to probably last for years, if that makes sense. Um, there's always going to be this desire for more acknowledgement, if that makes sense. I feel like it's never satisfying. If it's sort of like needing to eat. There's just something like human internal that we want to continue to get like this nourishment of acknowledgement. Um, that will never fully be quenched without never having needing it again. I don't know if that makes sense. Um, and I guess overall, there's another kind of area of me thinking about this is there a point in which this self-improvement journey becomes more of a curse than a blessing? And what I mean by this is that uh, I guess I'm kind of getting at like sort of this like elitist mentality. So like I'm thinking of like, say you're trying to work really hard to be like a doctor, and over the course of your journey you develop all this jargon, very explicit words and ideas that are at a higher level than most people. And so this sort of like expertise sort of builds a wall between the expert and the average person. And so with self-improvement, um, you start to, I guess, and I don't mean for this to come off as like arrogant in any way, but there's so much, I guess, mental energy devoted to trying to, um, I guess, chisel out flaws in your own life that if you see these kinds of things happening in another person's life, um, it's sort of, it makes it hard to relate to people, if that makes sense. And I think that dwelling too much on this kind of these kinds of differences between like an expert and like an average kind of understanding um, can make you less relatable and begin to alienate you from normal society. And I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. I think it's good to really gravitate on the doctor analogy for this, because here is like a doctor or like an expert mathematician who is very passionate about something that's very, important to them, such as like, very high level math or, um, medicine or something like that. And I guess them in the moment, they're very um, well informed, and it's like, who do you talk to about this? And I guess you could talk to, surround yourself with people of that same mindset. But as you're kind of surrounding yourself with people of that kind of mindset, you're further separating yourself and putting yourself in this bubble compared to the average person, making it harder to relate to the average you know person about most things. And I don't know, I feel like that's also something that's kind of unhealthy to do. So like, I guess when I'm thinking about like self improvement, it's like, can you also manage your relationships while you are improving yourself? um and I'm sorry if that comes off as arrogant. It's not really supposed to be arrogant. It's just kind of like trying to explain a mental thought process of like, is trying to work to become a better person, can that be more of a curse than a blessing, I guess. um so I guess when I think of self improvement, I just know that it's something where I want to be a better person. And I've listed out these things. Am I doing it for the journey of learning? Am I doing it for, other people, doing it for myself? Is I don't really know. I think it's a combination of all these things. I'm not really sure what the driving motivating factor is. Um, and I think like, it's just one of these things where I, s- I see myself as flawed. I see myself as someone who makes mistakes. And I think there's this kind of like tendency for me to really set a low bar and create this steady ramp. Like the main driving factor is to just check off these dopamine boxes, sort of like that drug analogy I was talking about earlier. um, and because I don't want to like peak too early, I just want to create a very steady curve in which to um, you know become a better person, I guess. um, and we're like 32 minutes into this video. I feel like this is not a very inspiring video. I don't know who's actually watching this, because it kind of just feels like uh, a lot of just like nonsense. But I think that this is probably just a good, uh, you know, I always say that these videos are sort of like diary entries or something, where it's kind of just venting a lot of the time. And I think that this is probably a good uh, summary of my mind, my state of mind, uh, around late August of 2022. So I guess that's the purpose of this. But I guess if I had to close on something, and this probably won't even be a closing, we'll probably just turn into another rant. But if I had to close on something related to like self improvement, I'd probably say that like overall, I think that self improvement is not really something that's necessary to life. Much like how I don't think that like being wise is a requirement to life. And so what I mean by this is that I think that, these are both things that are important to me, but I don't think that they're requirements. I don't think they're necessary. So I think that it's important to me to try to be to improve myself. I think it's important to me to try to be wiser every day, but I don't think that it's necessary to life. And I think that's something that's hard for me to grapple. I think that part of this whole self actualization inspiration of trying to be, more wise or more self improved is part of this is just, I want, uh, as much as I may not want to admit, but I think that a lot of it is inspired by other people seeing me as like someone who's wise. Um, and I generally enjoy the feeling of being humbled by receiving new information as well. I do think that I enjoy, achieving goals that I've set out for myself to do. But I do think that, doing these things alone definitely doesn't feel as rewarding as it does knowing that other people um, can, I guess, uh, know what you're doing. I guess it doesn't really feel like you've accomplished the goal if it's like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, kind of thing. It feels like if you accomplish a goal but you're the only one that knows about it, it doesn't feel like it was actually accomplished. So I guess that's what I mean by like, there is that element of like wanting others to like see me as you know to know that I'm intending to, try to be wise and to see me as wise. Um, and you know, I don't think that like I am this pinnacle of wisdom or anything, right? I don't think that I'm like the top echelons of people who are wise. I don't think that I, in my lifetime, will become one of the wisest people ever. But I do think that um, that's something that I would want, you know. But I do think that there's this sort of like going back to the blessing and a curse thing. I think there is this curse of being the wisest person. When people see you as the wisest person, I don't think that that's necessarily um, going to um, I guess that's going to come without any negative consequences of uh, of their own. Whether it's you constantly developing the stress to try to maintain this certain status, or realizing that you've peaked, or maybe you become complacent and like other people surpass you and you lose that status, and it becomes that whole like I guess what I just said, you peaked sort of thing. Now what do I have to live for? Um, so there can be a lot of I guess negative things with being the wisest person. So it's something that I kind of want but acknowledge it's probably not the best thing. And yeah, I guess the idea of just having to constantly justify my ranking, comparing myself to others, it seems like unnecessary extra bandwidth to try to compute, I guess. um, so I think like I've been saying like I think this is the main idea for a long time now. I think that one of the roots, I guess, of this haze that I'm experiencing is just trying to manage all these mental gymnastics without overloading. And I'm afraid, I guess, that if I break from a routine of trying to constantly improve myself, then I will sort of cease to be wise and, just constantly make more mistakes with leading to more negative consequences. And this compared with I want to embrace that I'm imperfect, but I don't want like this idea of me being imperfect to be this fingerprint that I leave behind in people's life. And I guess that causes me to think about like each person I interact with and how many different people in the world there are. And like one person, seeing me one way and another person seeing me another way. And then I'm like, why do I even care about what other people think? And I guess um, this whole idea of like, if I start to like ease up and lack discipline, then more people will think of me as imperfect, and but that's just part of life. We're all imperfect. So I guess trying to continue to maintain self improvement will help mitigate that. But at one point where none of us are perfect and we're all at one point I might just break and then everything will be in vain. I don't know. It's just a lot of ideas going um, in your head, I guess. And I guess it just feels like self improvement is just constantly an uphill battle without any closure. And any breaks you take, you're just gonna fall off the hill, if that makes sense. Um, So I think like, I could go on, but I'm just talking in circles and this video needs to end at some point. I think that self-improvement is just messy. Um, there's a lot of trial and error. Hopefully in the future, I'll be able to articulate this a lot better. But, until then, have a good one. I'll see you next time and later days.